They called me the side chick. They whispered behind my back, laughed at the woman who loved a man they said would never love her back. They said I was temporary, a joke, a distraction. But today, I wear the ring. I hold the keys. And every one of them, every smirking face and fake smile, is gone. From the sidelines to center stage, this is the story of how I turned their whispers into silence. Hi, my name is Sienna Caldwell. And if you've ever been labeled something you didn't ask for, if you've ever been underestimated, mocked, or dismissed, then I want you to stay right here with me, because I've learned that what they call you doesn't define you. What you choose to do next, that's the real story. Before we dive into how I went from the other woman to the only woman standing, I just want to say, if stories like this speak to you, please take a moment to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell icon so you don't miss what's coming next. Every click supports stories that deserve to be heard. Now, let's start from the beginning, the day I met him, and the day everything changed. I met Nathan Whitmore at a charity auction for a children's hospital. It was one of those evenings where everything felt like a movie, the clinking of glasses, the soft music playing in the background, the candlelight making everything and everyone look better than they were in daylight. I wasn't supposed to be there, honestly. My best friend Melanie worked in event catering and managed to sneak me in last minute because someone had canceled. I wore my only black cocktail dress, borrowed heels, and a necklace that had been my mother's. I didn't look like the women in that room, polished, poised, wearing diamonds that didn't come from a pawn shop. But somehow, Nathan saw me. He was magnetic, tall, confident, with that quiet type of charisma that made you lean in just to catch his words. He didn't come on strong. He just noticed me, asked my name, listened when I spoke about the art piece we were standing in front of. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel invisible. We didn't kiss that night. He just asked if I wanted coffee the next morning. That's how it began. At first, everything felt innocent. He never mentioned a wife. I never suspected one. He said he was recently separated, going through a complicated transition, and I, desperate for something beautiful in my life, chose to believe him. We met in hidden corners, long walks in places where no one knew us, dinners on his rooftop with wine and stories. He made me feel like I was his only world. It wasn't until 3 months in that I saw the comment under one of his company's social media posts, a picture of him at a gala, with a woman I didn't recognize. A comment that read, "The Whitmores looking stunning as always, power couple." I stared at that screen for hours. I Googled her name, Victoria Whitmore, his wife, not ex, not estranged, still wearing her wedding ring in every photo. I felt my stomach twist. I confronted him that night. He didn't deny it. He just said, "It's more complicated than you think. I'm trapped in an arrangement. I haven't loved her in years. I love you now, Sienna. Please, don't leave me." I should have walked away then. I should have thrown the wine glass and slammed the door and never answered his texts again. But I didn't, because I loved him. Because I wanted to believe that love could rewrite what was broken. Because I didn't yet understand the difference between loving someone and being loved back in the light. And that mistake, that one choice, it would unravel everything I thought I knew about love, loyalty, and myself. After that night, nothing was the same. I stayed, yes, but with a knot in my chest that wouldn't untangle. Every touch from Nathan felt like a question. Every word he said, a thread I had to pull apart to figure out what was real and what wasn't. I told myself I was different, that we had something more than what he had with Victoria, that love could make sense of the mess. But the truth? I had already started playing a role I never auditioned for, the villain in someone else's love story. Word got out. Not from me. Never from me. But somehow people knew. At first it was the cold glances at brunch spots, the subtle smirks when I entered the room, the women in his circle, socialites with designer bags and razor-sharp gossip, would nod at me with that syrupy sweetness that always hides venom. I'd hear the whispers as I passed. There's the side chick. She thinks she's special. Wait until the wife finds out. What they didn't know was she already had. Victoria never reached out to me directly, but I felt her presence in everything. She started showing up on his calendar more frequently. Events, board, meetings, functions, always with Victoria suddenly at his side. There were new pictures online, ones that made it seem like they were rekindling, like I didn't exist. I asked him once, voice trembling, "Are you still sleeping with her?" He hesitated. That was all I needed to know. The worst part wasn't the betrayal. It was how disposable I had become. I was someone's secret, someone's shame. But I didn't leave, not yet. Because something in me had shifted. The woman who had once believed every word he whispered was now starting to see the stage he'd built. And I was no longer content playing the fool in his shadow. It was the day I overheard one of his friends, Mark, I think his name was, laughing at a dinner party that everything inside me cracked. She's cute, yeah, but you know how it is. Side chicks always catch feelings. Then they act surprised when they get burned. I wasn't supposed to hear it. But I did. And in that moment, the humiliation boiled into something else. Something stronger. Sharper. I didn't cry that night. I sat up in his bed while he slept, and I made a list. A list of every time he had lied, every name that had laughed at me, every event I had been excluded from, every time I had been invisible. They called me the side chick. Fine, I'd play that role. But I'd rewrite the ending. And when I was done, they'd all know who I was. Not the joke, not the mistake, but the woman who walked through fire and came out holding the crown. They thought I was naive, that I'd cling to his lies like a lifeline and fade quietly when the game was over. But here's what no one understood. I wasn't a fool. I was just in love. And love, when betrayed, doesn't vanish. It evolves. Into resolve. Into clarity. Into something much more dangerous. I stopped asking Nathan for answers. Instead, I started observing, watching how he moved, who he trusted, what he feared. He was powerful, yes, but careless. And when men like him believe you're just the girl on the side, they forget to guard their secrets. I paid attention to everything, his business, his meetings, his passwords. He had let me into his world, but never thought I'd do anything with what I learned. He forgot I had a brain, that I'd built my own career before I ever met him. I worked in corporate communications. I knew how to read people, how to craft narratives, how to use silence like a sword. So I stayed. I played the role. Sweet, quiet, loyal. All while I was documenting everything. The deals he was hiding from his partners, the offshore accounts Victoria didn't know about, the messages he sent to other women, ones I wasn't supposed to see. I didn't confront him. I positioned myself. I made friends with the assistant he ignored, the driver he never tipped, the legal aide who handled his paperwork and wasn't paid nearly enough to stay loyal to a man like Nathan. Bit by bit, I built a portfolio of leverage, not for blackmail, but for my own protection. Because if I was going to walk away, I wasn't going to do it empty-handed. But something else happened in that time, something I didn't expect. Victoria started fading. Their marriage was already fractured, but now, it was unraveling. Nathan started showing up to our dinners exhausted, bitter, talking about divorce lawyers and trust funds and how much she was going to take him for. One night, as he poured his third glass of whiskey, he looked at me and said, "You're the only one who really understands me, Sienna." That's when I knew. He was ready to make me official. He didn't say it outright. Men like him rarely do. But I could feel it in the way he started treating me, as an asset instead of an accessory. He introduced me to his board members, started letting me sit in on phone calls. He moved me into the penthouse. The whispers grew louder, but so did my confidence. I wasn't just the girl in the shadows anymore. I was becoming his future. And once that ring was on my finger, I'd rewrite the rules. I didn't just want to win him. I wanted to win the game. And I had just begun. It didn't happen in some grand, over-the-top setting like I'd imagined when I was younger. No roses, no string quartet, no flash mob with a photographer hiding in the bushes. It was quiet, intentional, strategic. We were in Aspen for a winter board retreat. A fire crackled behind us, and outside, the snow fell thick and slow against the windows. Nathan handed me a glass of Merlot, sat down across from me, and said, "I don't want to do this halfway anymore. Let's make it real." He didn't get on one knee. He didn't even use the word marry. But the velvet box in his hand told me enough. Inside was a diamond, large, tasteful, cold as ice, just like his world. I said yes. And for a moment, I let myself feel the joy, the kind I thought only belonged to other women. I imagined the wedding, the photos, the look on the faces of every person who had called me a placeholder. I imagined finally being seen as legitimate, chosen. But deep down, I knew this wasn't just about love anymore. This was war. And I had just been crowned queen on a battlefield most women never win. After the engagement, everything changed. Suddenly, I had a seat at the table, both figuratively and literally. I wasn't just Nathan's girl anymore. I was his fiancée, the future Mrs. Whitmore. His assistant, the same one who used to pretend not to hear me, started calling me ma'am. His board partners stopped smirking and started shaking my hand. Invitations poured in from the same socialites who once called me that girl. I was being courted now, not as a secret, but as power. Even Victoria took notice. She sent back the ring he gave her with a single note. "You can have him. Just wait until he's yours completely." That line stayed with me, because she was right. He wasn't mine yet. Not fully. Until the paperwork was signed. Until the ink was dry. Until the vows were said and the lawyers were done splitting the empire she'd helped him build. I was still technically the outsider, but not for long. We married in a private ceremony. No press. No guests outside of a few executives and a distant cousin he barely knew. I wore ivory, not white, because I wasn't pretending to be pure. I knew exactly what I was walking into and what I was walking out with. When the minister said, "You may kiss the bride," I didn't feel butterflies. I felt power. And in that moment, I made a silent vow of my own. I will never be someone's secret again, and I will never let anyone humiliate me without consequence. The woman who once hid in corners was gone. I wasn't the side chick anymore. I was the wife, and I had a list of people who were about to learn exactly what that meant. Becoming his wife wasn't the ending, it was the beginning of boundaries, of reckoning, of reclaiming everything they thought I'd never have the strength to touch. Nathan handed me the keys to his life the moment we said "I do." Not just the penthouse and the beach house, not just the luxury SUV and the joint credit line. I got access to everything: the household staff, the finances, the calendars, the guest lists, and more importantly, the gatekeeper role his ex-wife used to play. It was poetic justice. The same people who once treated me like I wasn't worth a glance now had to answer to me. And I didn't raise my voice once. I just started cleaning house. First to go? His advisors. You know the type. His old fraternity brother who somehow had a six-figure salary with no real job title. The one who laughed too hard at the side chick jokes and once accidentally sent a meme to Nathan about trading up. Gone. Then the interior decorator Victoria used to consult. She showed up with swatches and smugness, talking about how Mrs. Whitmore always preferred cooler tones. I smiled, handed her a check, and let her know her services were no longer needed. "This is a warmer house now," I told her. "We don't do cold anymore." The social circle? I stopped attending their luncheons. When they texted me, I left them on red. When they gossiped about me, because they still did, I let silence answer them. Until the day I sent engraved invitations to a fundraiser I was hosting, one they all wanted to be seen at. Half of them RSVP'd within the hour. Power doesn't shout. It whispers and waits. And then, there was the final confrontation. Victoria. She showed up one afternoon while Nathan was out, standing in the foyer like she still owned the marble under her heels. "I just came to collect some old things," she said, eyes scanning me up and down. I didn't flinch. I walked to the front closet, pulled out a small box of labeled keepsakes, meticulously prepared the day after our honeymoon, and handed it to her. "These belong to the past," I said softly, "and the past no longer lives here." She didn't argue, she just stared for a moment, long and hard, like she was trying to find the weak girl in me who used to apologize for loving her husband. But I wasn't her anymore. She walked out without a word, and when the door closed behind her, I turned, exhaled, and smiled. Every voice that once mocked me, every person who called me a phase, every eye that rolled when I dared to dream, gone. They had underestimated the side chick, but the side chick had become the queen of the castle, and this castle now had only one throne, mine. For the first time in years, my world was quiet, not hollow, not cold, just quiet. There were no more whispered rumors following me into rooms, no more text messages from blocked numbers, no more half smiles from women who thought I didn't know exactly what they were thinking. Just the sound of coffee brewing in the mornings, of heels against polished floors, of my voice echoing back at me when I sang to myself without apology. It's strange how peace doesn't always arrive like fireworks. Sometimes it shows up soft, like sunlight on tile floors or the absence of a phone vibrating with drama you didn't ask for. Nathan changed too. Maybe it was the marriage, or maybe it was the realization that I wasn't the woman who would beg to be loved anymore. He started showing up, fully. He no longer kept secrets because he knew I wouldn't tolerate them. And for the first time, I saw a man who wasn't pretending. I didn't need to keep checking his messages or second-guessing every smile. I had already won, and not because I got the ring or the title or the marble countertops, but because I no longer needed to prove myself to people who had already decided I didn't belong. There's a different kind of strength that comes when you walk through humiliation, betrayal, judgment, and come out holding your head higher than ever. I started mentoring young women, quietly. I didn't make a show of it, but I began supporting nonprofits that helped women get out of toxic relationships, rebuild their confidence, restart their careers. I funded a scholarship for women who had been publicly shamed or abandoned, not because I needed to make a statement, but because I knew what it was like to be erased, and I had made a promise to myself that I would never let another woman drown quietly just because someone else was louder. I still get looks sometimes. Old friends of Victoria, former clients of Nathan's, people from our past who glance at me like they're trying to remember where they've seen me before. And then it clicks. Their eyes widen, their jaw tightens, and I smile, politely, powerfully, because the woman they thought would disappear, she's still here, and she's not hiding anymore. To every woman who's ever been called a name behind her back, to the ones who were labeled side chick, second choice, not wife material, or worse. This part is for you, because I've been her. I've been the one who loved too much, believed too quickly, and forgave more than I should have. I've been judged for staying, mocked for leaving, and shamed for standing in the very place they said I didn't deserve to be. But let me tell you something no one said to me when I was in the thick of it. You don't need their permission to take up space. You don't need their approval to rebuild your life. You don't need their forgiveness for rising higher than they ever expected. What they call you when you're down says more about them than it ever will about you, and what you choose to do with that pain, that's your story, not theirs. I didn't become his wife to prove them wrong. I didn't build a life of peace and purpose just to silence critics. I did it because I finally realized I was worth more than half love, whispered promises, and rooms where I had to shrink to be allowed in. Becoming his wife didn't heal me. I healed me. And when I stood in that doorway, watching every last trace of the people who had once laughed at me disappear from my life, I didn't feel revenge. I felt release. They can call me what they want, but I know who I am. And to every woman watching this, whether you're still in the storm or just coming out of it, I want you to know, you're not just someone's maybe. You're not someone's secret. You are not small. You are not forgettable. And you are not the side character in someone else's life. You are the main story. So tell it boldly. Walk into your next chapter with your head high, your heart whole, and your heels clicking a little louder than they did before. Because you're still here, and you're not hiding anymore. Thank you for walking with me through this story, for every second you spent listening, not just to what happened, but to how it felt. If you saw even a piece of yourself in my journey, if you've ever been dismissed, disrespected, or doubted, I hope you take this with you. Your value does not shrink because someone failed to see it. Your worth is not defined by their titles, their circles, or their silence. And your story is still being written by you. They called me the side chick, but I became the wife, and I didn't just wear the crown. I rebuilt the kingdom. And now, I stand in the center of it all, not out of revenge, but out of reclaiming everything they said I wasn't worthy of. If this story moved you, if it gave you strength, or even just reminded you of your own power, please take a moment to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who might need this message. Because these stories, they don't just entertain, they remind us that dignity, growth, and healing are louder than shame will ever be. Thank you again for being here. Until next time, take up space, speak with grace, and never forget. The woman they counted out might just be the one who rises highest.